In times of trauma and adversity, we must create space for connection by sharing a story of hope. Welcome to Stories of Hope Worldwide, hosted by Kerry Atherton. This podcast shares inspiring stories of individuals who have faced significant challenges and emerged stronger, offering hope and resilience to listeners all over the world. Join Kerry, the founder of Stories of Hope, every week to hear these remarkable journeys and find strength to overcome your adversity. Now, let's listen in to this week's conversation.
Welcome to another episode of Stories of Hope Worldwide. I'm Kerry Atherton and I'm your host. And today's guest is Greg Gould, a phenomenal, highly acclaimed singer-songwriter whose life has been marred by the trauma of sexual abuse. Today we're going to be talking about how he uses his voice to empower others to break out of the shame that was never theirs to carry. Welcome, Greg.
Hello. Hello, Kerry. How are you?
Good. So awesome to meet you in person or virtually.
It's great to connect. I've been looking up your stuff and I'm really happy to see that there's people doing what you do.
Oh, thank you so much. And I saw a video recently with the mother of Jessie Bird, and it was a song that you had created about sexual abuse and sexual violence. I was just so moved by that video, and I read your story of what you've been through, and I can resonate with a lot of it because I've also experienced sexual abuse and sexual assault. And I also turned to alcohol and drugs to numb out that pain. And I also got sober. And so I'm also, I didn't go as far as you did with the singing, but I thought I just really resonate.
Oh, well, we're sisters of song.
Oh, I know. And so look, Greg, for a man, sexual assault is a secret that many take to the grave.
Yes.
Now, my many years of counselling, it's something that I'll do a lot of work with someone and it won't come out for a very long time. And then others just can never talk about it. So I just want to say how much I really admire and respect you for your bravery in speaking out to help break the stigma for others and help them find a voice.
Yeah. It's not something I ever thought I would talk about either. And like you just said, sometimes it takes a long time. For me, it did. I hadn't spoken to my parents. I hadn't spoken to anybody, not even my bestest friends. And then we were doing a songwriting session back in 2021. And this particular person tapped into that part of my life. And it came flooding out. And this song called Who Gave You Permission, which is not the song you're talking about that I've done the video with Jessie Bird's mother, but another song on the same album. This album that I've just released is like a survivor's album. It's my life and my survival and but also my joy and there's a lot of trauma in that album, but it's a beacon of hope because I've come out the other side. I've come out sober and happy and found the love of my life and all those wonderful things that you can have in this life and still be a survivor. But yeah, it was written in like 3 minutes. It came out really fast, and then I went, okay, I'm never releasing that. That will never see the light of day. And then this other co-writer convinced me to perform it at a showcase a few years ago. And I was so nervous about it. I was so scared to perform it because I hadn't spoken publicly. When I performed that song to the audience, I hadn't spoken to my own family. And I bawled my eyes out as I went to go talk about it. And the audience was so incredible. They were with me. I've never felt anything like that before. Quite as powerful. And I sung the song. And it wasn't until after I performed the song that afterwards I realized, oh, I have to release this song. I had 3 people come up to me, a trans woman, a man and a woman, in tears saying, thank you for writing this song. I wish I had this song when I was going through what I went through, but now I have this song. So I was like, aha. So yeah, and I realized over the last couple of years since telling my story, just how powerful it is, not just for myself, but for others.
Yeah.
And not just the music, but just sharing your story, how powerful that can be. Particularly with the video that I've just released, I have seen a lot of comments on the video about sexual abuse always being men.
When you say that, Greg, you're talking about the presumption that most sexual abuse is men towards women. Is that what you mean when you said most people think that?
Yes, and it's not the presumption that it's most, because the statistics don't lie. Yes, it is mostly men being predators, but it's the comments that say it's always men, it's only ever men. And I can't tell you how many people have said this. And I understand the outrage and the feeling, but what you're doing in that moment, and it hits me every time. It feels like a lead bullet every time someone says that, because it erases my story. Does not negate all the beautiful women that have been abused by men, and I support them, and I'm with them, and I want to protect them and do all I can to help support them. But I know that as a man, how emasculating it can feel to put my hand up and say, "Me too," and not just me too. I was abused by a woman, Kerry.
Yeah.
There are many men out there that, as you said, die in silence, or heaven forbid, take their own lives because of the silence that they carry. I want men to be comfortable enough to speak up too. So we can't be silencing and erasing their experiences.
Oh, and I 100% agree. There are so many men that struggle. We just never hear about it. That's why they're not in the statistics. The shame is the thing that they carry. It destroys their identity. It takes away their innocence. And when it happens when they're a child, it's such a confusing thing as guys are going through puberty, or to work out what's happened, and they don't realise back then at that young age that is actually wrong.
My first experience, I was 10 years old.
That's right, yeah.
And I was told it was our little secret. It's a game, so I didn't think anything was wrong with it. And also, it really messed me up in terms of my identity, because I believe that I was born gay, and I am a very proud gay man. But for a long time, I carried this shame and the abuse. Am I gay because I was abused? No. And that takes away what should be a beautiful coming of age identity thing to become something quite confusing and scary. And even at 21, I flipped, and I tried to date a woman because I was so confused by it. I must say this, I don't take this as a joke, but I'm definitely gay. and that experience was not for me. But, I had to go and do that because I was still so confused about it.
Yeah. Greg, do you want to take us back? Because I know that the event at 10 where you were first sexually molested, there was more to come after that, unfortunately. Do you feel like you could share the story of what happened to you over those next few years?
So it actually did happen for a number of years. When I was very young, it was the man across the road. He had a wife. My parents had trust in him. He had a piano at his house, so I used to go and play the piano. And and he was the first person to introduce me at 10 years old to gay porn. He used to hide it behind the VCR. And what's the most traumatic part of that for me is I am a gay man into men, so it was even more confusing, because the shame that I carried was I meant to enjoy it because it was another man? No, it's still abuse. You can be abused by the sex that you're into. It's not. No one wants to be raped. No one wants to be abused. It's not enjoyable. It's especially one of my collaborators on my album is also is John Fetlaga. They're an incredible queer artist who appeared on Drag Race Philippines, and I recently collaborated with them on a song. And when they were raped at 13 years old by 13 men.
Oh, God.
And they shared this on the show on Drag Race Philippines. And the thing that was most disturbing about that is when he spoke up to people in the community, they said, "Oh, girl, come on, you wanted it."
Oh,
Nobody wants that.
no.
Anyone that thinks that you wanted it, just because the queer community might be more seen as more promiscuous or no, it's no one wants to be raped.
And regardless of preferences or what you're into, it's got nothing to do with it. Has it? Abuse is abuse.
Absolutely nothing.
And I mean, I was actually sexually molested at 10 and 9 years old, sorry.
So sorry to hear that.
Thank you, Greg. But the thing for me that really destroyed my life was that we went to the police and that person knew where I lived. And I lived in terror from that day on that this person would track me down and kill me. And it was not only the shame of the actual sexual assault, but it was the terror
Yeah.
that I was no longer safe.
That's why a lot of women and men don't speak out, because they're scared of if there's consequences for that. And you know, you mentioned before about going into the next stage of what happened to me. I then was working on cruise ships when I was 21, and one of my cast members forced sex on me. It was so painful. I've never experienced anything like that before. And he was in a position of power. He was my vocal captain on that particular cruise ship. I was scared of losing my job, and it was all of those things. But the third one really stood out to me. This happened when I was about 28, 27. It was a person in the queer community who was quite influential in the booking area of events. They had booked me for an event, and I was so scared of that my career, that they could affect my career or ruin my career. So I stayed silent. I just allowed my reputation to be smeared because I didn't want to speak up about it because I thought it would ruin my career.
And how often do we hear this? Like, it's really being talked about a lot now, isn't it? As big artists are being held to account for what they've done, but it's just the icing on the cake, isn't it? There's so many people in the music and creative industries that have fallen victim to this, and they feel like they have been silenced and that they actually can't speak up.
Correct. Yeah, I kept that silent for a long time. It wasn't until the fourth and final experience that I had. I was 30 years old. It was a week after my 30th birthday, and this was the female. This is the woman. She was my best friend, some friend of many years, and knew my history of abuse, knew pretty much everything. But it still happened, and it happened in a really horrific way. And that was the catalyst for me just giving up on everything. That's when I found drugs to numb myself. And I numbed my existence for about 18 months. I checked out of life. I considered ending my life, all of those things. But I think sometimes when you hit that rock bottom, and I did, when you come back from that, you have nothing to lose. I felt much more empowered later, and I don't have the fears now. I don't even care. Like, I would assume some of those people would know that they're the people that I've talked about. I haven't named them. I haven't shamed them, but that they would know that the story. They know what happened. And that to me was taking back power. It was telling my story and owning what happened to me. So you can't hurt me anymore. I've bared all. I will tell my own story. Thank you very much.
It's so freeing, isn't it, when you feel like you can do that? When I was 17, I was actually raped when I was drunk one night, and I held that as a secret until I didn't tell anyone, and I didn't deal with it until I was 50. And I always...
You don't look a day over 40, darling. What are you saying?
Thank you. I've been on many years of not drinking. And, sadly, it was part of, my addiction journey, but I had the belief that there was no justice when I was 9, and there would be no point in telling anyone what happened when I was 17 because the police did nothing back then and they would do nothing now. So I lived with this secret that made me have such a low sense of self. And my self-worth was just terrible. And, I was addicted to what other people thought. I felt rejected all the time. But once I dealt with that, and one of the things you mentioned, I thought to myself when I did the reckoning at about 50 one day, and there was things that led to that day, I thought that guy is probably married, he's probably got a daughter, and he's got to live with what he did. And that's not something he can never escape.
Yeah.
And that day that I kind of shed that shame was the day that I truly felt like I'm going to come out.
You handed the shame back. The shame's on them.
That's right.
There's a lyric in my song, Who Gave You Permission, that says, one day I'll forgive you and hand back the shame. And that to me is what I did when I told my story. It's one thing to write a song, but to tell what happened to me and to be so specific, people know who that is. People in my circles know who that is.
Yeah.
As I said, I'm not interested in anything further than what I've done. I've done what I'm comfortable with, and that's important for people to know. is you speaking up is on your terms. You get to tell the parts of your story you feel like telling. There's absolutely no shame in speaking, especially the thing that I really want to say to other men out there, and this obviously all genders, but particularly other men, is you're no less of a man because you speak up. You're no less masculine or feminine or whatever you are. Just be yourself. But there's no shame in speaking up, even if it was at the hands of a woman. You should feel comfortable to tell your truth.
Absolutely, 100% agree. And also, you're no less of a man if you have been sexually abused. And I think that that's the lie that really sets in for guys, particularly.
Yes.
It impacts on their masculinity and everything.
I had things like, oh, why didn't you overpower her? Why didn't you, like, all the things that went through my mind is that, people wouldn't believe me because it's a woman. Do you understand that in that moment how paralyzing that is?
Yeah.
You think I didn't try? I was literally, of course, but I couldn't believe it was happening. I was in shock.
Yeah.
So many things. And you know what? I did end up pushing this person off me quite severely. It was not good. It was horrendous. I'm sure you can imagine. I was livid. I felt betrayed in the worst possible way. This is a friend of mine.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did feel like she was also a very loved person in the community that I lived in back home and on the coast. And again, would people believe that this perfect woman, this perfect lovely human would do something like this, you know?
Yeah. Greg, so you never felt like you could tell your parents?
No, and the fears that I had were very real. Like both of my parents obviously were very supportive. My father, the person that was across the road was much older. They're now long gone. And my father's response was, "Thank you for telling me. He's lucky he's dead."
Right.
And that comes out of him wanting to express that he, he would have wanted to protect me or do something about it. My mum's first reaction was, "Why didn't you tell me?" Which I can totally understand. She obviously also, we had a much longer conversation. She understands why I didn't. But that come from a place of, I would have wanted to protect you. I could have done something about it, and I didn't want them to blame themselves. I was so young. They put me in this person's care. They thought I enjoyed going over there and playing with this guy's computer games. They saw that this guy was married. They wouldn't have thought for a second that this would happen.
Yeah. When did you tell them, Greg?
Just before I went public with my story.
And that was only, 2 or 3 years ago?
Yeah, 2.5 years ago.
Wow. And how old are you now?
I was about to say I'm 30. No, I'm not. I wish I was 30.
I turn now. You only look 30.
Thank you. Excuse me, I look 25. I am 38. So
wow. Okay.
I was 35 when I told my parents.
Wow.
So it was 5 years after the final one.
Yeah.
Mum did know about the final one. Mum did know about that. She also knows, obviously, the whole family knew that I went down the path of addiction and numbing myself, and they know everything.
And I get with what your dad said. When I was about 14, my dad asked me to give his best friend a piano recital, and he tried to, touch me up and look down my top and that. And I actually was frozen after what had happened when I was 9. And I went and told my mum, and she said, "Don't ever tell your father." And I know now that that was because she didn't want my dad to probably end up in jail. But I had to live with that secret until my dad died. And the first thing I did when my dad died 7 years ago was I wrote a letter to that person. And he was a very prominent figure in ABC Jazz Radio.
Oh,
and
wow.
I've never been able to actually track him down, but I hope he's watching because he's got to live with what he did, and I wouldn't have been the only one. And just the fact that I had to live with that secret for so long, it really is soul destroying when you feel like you can't be open with the people that you're really close to and you love.
Yes, and I can relate to that because this, particularly with the woman, she was someone that I was close to and I loved. So
Yeah.
that made it even more hard.
As you hear this story, what Kerry's discussing might be resonating strongly with you. Perhaps you've experienced something similar yourself and are looking for support. Kerry Atherton is an experienced counsellor and wellbeing coach and has private sessions available if you or someone you know needs some help. You don't have to deal with trauma, addiction, PTSD and abuse alone. If you'd like to talk about today's episode or your own experiences, book a session with Kerry at empowerlifesolutions.com.au or check the link in the show notes and embrace a future filled with hope. Now back to the episode.
I always wanted to be, a famous jazz musician because I'd played the piano since I was 7 and my dad was a musician as well. And I never made it. Addictions and the fears and of the trauma actually really just took me down a slippery path so quickly. And before our interview, I was thinking to myself, why is it that some people can continue on in their dreams and actually make that happen and then others? And I thought, did I just not have what it took, or was I too broken, or what was it? I'm fascinated to know how you managed to go on and become such a successful, acclaimed, well-known, famous singer and songwriter. Was that your escape?
Well, I don't know how that I'm famous, but I'm maybe mostly infamous. I appreciate you saying that. I threw myself into work.
So that was your
I pushed
escape.
it down. I pushed it down. I pushed it down. And music was always the constant in my life. Even actually, I'm getting emotional. The only time that it wasn't was when I was on drugs.
Right.
That's when the music stopped. But every other time in my life, music has always been a go-to. When I was bullied in school, Jenny Morris's Shiver album was what I used to listen to as like a best friend. When I say I had no friends in school, I had no friends in school. As soon as I came out as a singer, it was not cool to be a singer back then. There was no such thing as The Voice. You weren't celebrated. You weren't on TV. You're a singer. You're a girl. Only girls sing. Like, I was horrendously bullied in school to the point that my year 5 teacher pulled my parents aside and said, he is getting caned in this. You need to get him to a performing arts school because he's not going to survive high school.
Wow, right.
And that album was my best friend. And I actually got to thank Jenny Morris years and years later. I went to an event with Tanya Doko as her guest, and the keynote speaker was Jenny Morris. And I bawled my eyes out and I told her, thank you so much for being the soundtrack and the hope of my childhood. And to her credit, she goes, so how are you now? Oh. And I was like, of course, this queen. That's what you're going to tell me. And shift, rather than taking the praise, she pushed back and said, so how are you now? I was like, oh, don't even.
What a beautiful thing to say in that moment.
Oh, it's salt of the earth. Yeah. So music and my career, aside from, obviously when I got into the grips of addiction, everything stops. Like, it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't discriminate. You can lose your house, you can lose your job, you can lose your family, you can lose all your loved ones. I was lucky I didn't lose my loved ones or my family. I was estranged from my family at that time because I don't believe someone who is on drugs and inebriated can be trusted. I certainly didn't trust myself, but I obviously am a very honest person. And at that time, when you're on drugs, you're not yourself. That wasn't me,
No, that's right. It's a sickness.
Correct. And the drugs also, you're intoxicated. You're not thinking clearly. You're not making clear decisions. You're making decisions inebriated, So that whole time was such a horrendous spiral of, it's awful to look back on. But at the same time, Kerry, it's interesting. I feel like I found myself at that time as well. I don't want anyone to ever go through what I went through, either in the abuse side of things or the addiction side of things. And I wouldn't wish that upon anyone. But in a really weird, messed up way, I'm glad that it happened because I'm who I am now because of what's happened to me.
Yeah, today, now you've got the courage to actually really speak out and the clarity of mind to be able to share your message. And
I wouldn't be who I am today, the person that I love, had I not been through those tough times.
Greg, I want to touch on an extremely powerful moment in your life where you shared on one of your posts you had really, really just absolutely hit rock bottom, and it was a 7-year-old girl that came up to you with an ice cream while she was with her dad in the street. That was just so life-changing. Can you share about that day and that moment?
So to put it in perspective, this was towards the end of my addiction because it was a real turning point for me. And I got a phone call from my sister. She said, "Happy birthday." And I said, "Huh?" And to give you an idea of how out of touch with the world was, I had no idea it was my birthday.
Wow.
She told me she loved me and she's worried about me. And I hung up the phone. I couldn't get a word out. I was just doubled over sobbing. And I hung up the phone. And I remember being on Oxford Street in Sydney outside the Optus shop, which was next to the IGA, just doubled over, bawling my eyes out. I've never cried so hard in my life.
Yeah.
Because it was all of the build-up. It was also, the reality of what I was living, what the destructive path I was on, the traumas that I'd carried. That it was as much as a pain as a release. And this father with two young kids that had to have been on, 5 and 7 or something like that, young boy and a young girl, comes out, grabs his groceries. He'd done his groceries, left with all his groceries and pulled out a 4-pack of drumsticks, hands it to his daughter and says, "What do we do when someone's upset, when someone's crying?" That daughter comes up to me, hands me an ice cream. She knew. She wasn't instructed, give that ice cream to him. He just said, "What do we do?" And I heard the whole thing. It was like an out-of-body experience.
Yeah.
It gives me goosebumps still now. And she hands it to me, looks up to me. I'm like a mess. I'm on drugs, so I probably look like, I'm a pretty boy, but drugs can make the most pretty people look pretty horrendous. And I would have looked like just tired, and I was so skinny, and all of the things that drugs do to you, I would have looked sunken in and horrible. But obviously, this person could see I'm just a human in pain. And yeah, she handed it to me and said, "It's okay."
Oh, wow.
And
That's gorgeous, isn't it?
it was absolutely gorgeous. And it just gave me the biggest, it's no different than if you're having a bad day and you're walking down the street and just a random person smiles at you. It's that same ricochet of kindness. And it was a huge turning point. It gave me hope. It gave me hope. And I thanked that little girl and his father. If I could ever, know who they were, I would give them the biggest hug in the world, because it was a huge part of turning my life around. As much as another one that I want to talk about, my best friend, that very same day came looking for me on my birthday, came to the house that she knew I was staying, but I wasn't there because I was off probably doing drugs with someone. And then actually spoke to my roommate, who was also someone that was doing drugs. And I still don't know why they did this. I think it was because, we didn't get along that very well. And I don't think it was his right. But at the same time, I want to thank him. This is the first time I've said this in this moment, for what he did, because whilst at the time I felt betrayed by this person, by what he did, again, it was all pointing towards my recovery. He told Mel, my bestie, and he said to her, "Do you realize how bad Greg's drugs are?" And she didn't. She knew that I was not okay. She didn't know the extent of it or what I was using or any of those sorts of things. And he told her. And I felt at the time really angry, because that's like the mirror that I can't lie to. This is like, I had my actual sister on one phone call and my other sister in life, my best friend of 22 years,
Right. Yeah.
calling me out and saying, "What is going on?" And yeah, so she never gave up on me. And and then I found out later, she's actually the one that called my sister to call me.
Oh, wow.
So again, it's those little glimmers of hope that people don't realize can be life-changing. Someone cared about me. My family still loves me. And for me, I must say this, I do feel lucky that I have a gift. My singing is a gift. My singing is something that brings me great joy. That's something that I'll always do. I'll never give up on my singing. I love it so much. And it can be a really hard industry. And I know a lot of people do give up and go get other jobs. That's
Yeah.
not an option for me. This is who I am. And yeah, so for me, I feel very lucky that I have something that I love, that I have success in, that I can come back, that I was able to come back to and pick up and arguably did better than I've ever done in my career after such a horrific time, which is the greatest reward. Not that it's revenge to those that hurt me, but me being successful after all that's happened to me, after all the addiction and the abuse and self-destructive mental health stuff that I've had, now I get to live my best life.
Yeah, that's awesome. And now you're sharing messages of hope.
I want to help others. There aren't that many examples out there of someone that has been through what I went through and the depths. I put it into perspective for you. I had no idea what day it was.
Yeah, I get that. I sit in the AA rooms constantly, and I hear these stories over and over and over again. Are you in a 12-step program today?
No,
Okay.
I'm not, and I don't have a therapist.
Yeah.
That works for some people. I don't like the idea of telling my stuff to a stranger. I talk to the people that I love.
Yeah.
I talk to my partner. He's beautiful. I talk to my best friend Mel, who is that wonderful warrior and hero that stayed in my life.
Go Nell.
Not now, and I would talk to my parents. As long as you have those people, I still do value professionals. Don't get me wrong, and if that works for you, absolutely. And if you don't feel you can talk to your family, your friends, your partners, if you don't have those people in your life, absolutely go speak to someone. They are very good at what they do, but for me, that's not me. That's not the way I handle things.
Would I be right to say your therapy then is your music?
In a huge way, absolutely. Yeah. It's very cathartic to write my songs, to tell my story. When you go and have an AA meeting and you tell your story, what's the difference between me telling my story to my thousands of followers or the world?
When I got sober, they said, find an interest. And fortunately for me, similar to you, I had the piano and I'd been very lonely, no friends. I totally get all that, and the piano was the one thing that unconditionally I could just pour out everything on, and there was no fear of rejection.
And Kerry, what about the people that don't have that? They've got to dig so much deeper. Those that don't have hope. Yeah. Me, I know I can find the most incredible joy that I've ever had in music. I always had that gift to come back to. Yeah. I always had a light at the end of that tunnel for me. Other people can't see that light because I don't have a gift like piano or vocals or something like that. So that makes me want to help others dig deeper and find the joy in life.
Yeah. And that's the thing, and that's the message, isn't it? If you don't have a purpose or everyone's been given a gift of some kind, but dig hard and find that gift or find that purpose.
Or find people that will help you find that gift, because there are people out there want to help people like you and I, Kerry, that are, even if they're not the people that are in your world right now, you will find other people. And people is what makes the world so special. I remember, because through maybe you can relate to this. Through my addiction period, which was about 18 months, there were glimpses where I was sober and I was able to go to have a dinner or go to a birthday or do an occasional gig. So I did do occasional gigs and I always sobered up for those. Yeah. Except for one time, and we can talk about that in a second, because that was also a turning point. But I remember distinctly going to dinner with Christine Forster and Virginia, her wife, which is Tony Abbott's sister, and I actually sang at their wedding. Oh, and I've told them this recently, that they were a bit of exactly what happened. We went to dinner in Sydney, and it was the first time in a long time I'd done anything social. And I remember laughing and having a good time and going, oh my goodness, this is what the natural high is. That's what real dopamine is. That's what life is about. Life is about people and laughter and joy. And I remember going, I miss this. I miss the real high of life, not being numb. And I'm a very specific case in that I was someone that had never touched a pill until I was 30 years old. And even now, I'm not a party person. I'm not a drug person. I love myself a little cocktail now and again, but I was never into drugs. I was actually anti-drugs before all of my 20s, like, oh, drugs are horrible, And so for me to be now on drugs was crazy. I was numbing. I just did not want to wake up and face the music and what I'd been through. I didn't want to deal with the trauma. I didn't want to deal with any of those things. And it wasn't until there was a turning point, aside from these moments that were leading towards this turning point. I looked in the mirror one day, Kerry, and I went, what the are you doing?
Mm.
And the time that moved so fast that all of a sudden it started as something that I was like, okay, I'm just going to do this for a little while because it's making me not deal with what I'm dealing with. And then it turned into 6 months, and it turned into 12 months. I'm like, okay, I'm still doing this. What's going on? And then 18 months in, I looked in the mirror and went, okay, time's up. Time to face the music. And I cold turkey.
Wow, that's incredible that you could do that.
Not everyone can, and I really understand that.
Yeah.
Which made me feel like, and this is just my take on it. It felt like, I'm not going to say it was, because obviously there's a chemical involved, and there's chemicals involved in this. It felt like I wasn't addicted to the drug, but I was addicted to feeling numb.
Yes. And, something that I share when I speak at the meetings is, aside from just wanting the escapism and to blot out the trauma and the anxiety and the pain and the fear,
Just to not feel
I
it.
just wanted to escape from myself because I hated myself so much.
And I made a bet with myself in that moment, Kerry, that if I'm going to come back from the dead here, which is what it felt like, I am going to speak to my father and talk to him about the questions I've had. I'm going to talk to my mother and fix that relationship, fix both of those relationships. I'm going to talk to the people in my life that don't understand me, that I need them to know how I feel. And I fixed all of the relationships and I spoke about everything. It felt like for years that I had, you said, how did I do my career and all that with carrying on? It's because I just was very strong and I carried this brick wall and all these bricks in my brick wall. And eventually, and that final straw was the woman who abused me. The bricks caved in. There was an extra big large, that was the large brick at the top that just, I tumbled over and I was in the rubble.
Yeah.
Well,
great analogy.
Well, for me to get up out of that rubble and re-concrete that floor was to do that. I had to sit there and have the hard conversations and talk about the things that I had to talk about. For me to hand back, not the shame, take it off my shoulders, to put those bricks back in the wall and not have them on me.
Yeah, I love that. And the thing is that whatever's kept in the darkness can never be dealt with. It's only when we bring it out into the light.
Yeah. That's when you start to heal from it. Yeah. And for me, another point, I spoke before that I always sobered myself up before gigs, bar one. It happened once and it was horrendous. I remember being in the taxi on the way to this gig and I was not in, I should not have been in public, let alone on stage. But anyone that knows addiction is I had to take that gig because I had no other form of income. I wasn't working.
Yeah.
So I remember the taxi driver saying to me, "Do you really want to go in there, mate?"
Yeah.
He knew. The taxi driver who drove me to this gig knew that I was not in a state to be going in there because I'd spoken that I was. He's like, "No, you shouldn't go in there." And thanks again. Thank you to this perfect stranger that was.
I know, right? How caring is that? Like, that is really caring for your well-being.
Really caring. And I went in there at night, Kerry, with sunglasses on. And I told the person that I was not well to make up for the fact that I was not.
Yeah.
So, that I was not, light
in a state to.
I was in a bad state. I wasn't. Yeah. If the taxi driver knew I was not in a state to go in, enough to say something, you can imagine how I was.
Yeah. So saying you weren't well, that's a good plan.
But I thought at least I can go up there and sing my song and get off stage and get my coin. Yeah. Well, no, I couldn't. I walked out there and it was the song that I actually auditioned with for Australia's Got Talent. I was singing Purple Rain at a corporate event and I went, "I never meant," and I walked out there and I was dizzy and I could because I'd only just taken my glasses off because I had my glasses backstage. Surely I would have looked like a crazy person. But I just told them I wasn't well, so I went and sat down somewhere, and I wasn't well. I made it out that it was I was sick, but I was there to still perform. I went out there, I opened my mouth, I thought, "I'm never meant to cause you," and I knew in that moment there was no way I was getting out of that alive, and I burst into tears and ran off stage after singing 2 lines.
Oh wow!
I was so dizzy that there's no way I could have. I knew what was after it. It was a choreographed thing after that. There was absolutely no way that I was going to get through that performance. And I couldn't. I was dizzy. I couldn't even sing.
Yeah.
And I couldn't sing properly. I never had to. Like, it wasn't, there was no way. I just had to bail.
Yeah.
And that was like, and again, I burst into tears afterwards because it was the realization that I couldn't even do my gift, what I was born to do. It
And
was
maybe the humiliation as well. That publicly.
massively.
Yeah, exactly.
Massively. And again, I put it down to me being sick,
Yeah.
that I was dizzy and I couldn't perform. And thankfully I got through that.
Greg, you were sick.
I was very, yes. I was absolutely sick.
Sick with addiction.
But and this is the thing, once you've shared your story, people can't hurt you with it.
No, that's right. There's nothing to hide.
I remember, because obviously I met a lot of people in that time that was in that world. And I remember getting a threat in my inbox that if I didn't give this person money, they were going to go public. Now, they had video of me doing drugs, they reckoned.
Right.
And I remember the fear in that time, because this was when I was just getting sober. And I think I blocked the person. I know I didn't give them money. Thankfully, I was with my partner at the time, and he said, absolutely not. You are not going to, be blackmailed. Block that person. They don't have it. And he convinced me, and he was probably right, that they probably don't have a video. They're just doing that to try and scare you.
Yeah.
Now, you want to share that video? That's shameful, but go ahead. You got videos of me on drugs? I've got nothing to hide.
Yeah.
It would be awful. You'd be an awful human for doing it. But you know what? If that existed to end up on some website and I'm doing drugs and you want to broadcast that, go for your life, mate. Even when I was on apps, I'd have people going, oh, I have awful things said. Like, obviously, when you're on the apps and you're doing drugs, you be honest and you tell them that you're interested in doing drugs or whatever. And then I'd put my phone up or something and then someone would go, oh, make horrible comments about, remember that time you lost a national television show? Or I've had it all. Like, yeah. And the funny thing, because I am such an open book, maybe I should have been smarter and not told people who I was. But I would, when they'd ask me what I do, I'd say I'm a singer, and then, that would start a conversation.
Yeah.
If I was smarter now, I would have done my time and never told anyone what I was. I was the cleaning lady, because then they'd have nothing on me. But that's a very real thing, that I did get blackmail from someone that I hooked up with that wanted to get money from me.
Wow. Greg, who's the person that you admire the most?
Oof. I've got a few. My best friend, Mel, she's an incredible human. She's just become a mother for the second time. And watching her become a mother has been one of the greatest joys of my life. My mum is my hero. She's a beautiful human being, and she's been through struggles herself. She didn't have it easy as a young woman. And the love that I've always had in my life and carried has been another beaming hope. I know people say no one loves their children like my mother does. I'm telling you now, no one loves their children like my mother does. My father, whilst we've had a roller coaster relationship, we've come out the other side, and he taught me honesty.
Oh, I love that.
I'm a very honest person, and that comes from him. And then the final one would be my partner, Brad, who has been my rock and has kept me, I've kept myself on the path. No one could stop you if you wanted to go back. If I wanted to, I do have to pat myself on the back, and we all have to pat ourselves on the back for staying sober and getting our life back together. But no one doesn't do that without help. Well, they do. Don't get me wrong. For me, I had help and I had support, and it's in these people that I'm giving their flowers. And Bradley has been an incredible partner, and I do think that he's had a huge hand in keeping me both sober and on the track to achieving my dreams and believing in me. He believed in me when I didn't.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. We all need that person that believes in us when nobody else does. Greg, so what's next for Greg Gould?
So I've got a few more singles from this album, Strings Attached Deluxe.
Yes.
I've got some really exciting tours that are mingling away in the background.
Right.
And I'm about to perform at Sydney Film Festival for the premiere of my first ever film, which is called Body Blow. And I wrote three songs from the soundtrack, including the song you hear in the credits. It's called Running. That single's coming out in June. And I'm looking forward to that. I think we've sold out one of the screenings and like 20 tickets left for the other one. And then I'll be working on my next album for next year.
Oh, that's fantastic. Did you want to sing any of that song that I was referring to?
So that one, Who Gave Permission it was my sexual abuse anthem. That's me telling my story. No more was inspired by the tragic killings of Jesse Baird and Luke Davies, but it talks about all kinds of violence. And in the video, I stood up and held up the Me Too sign for those that have been affected by that kind of violence.
It's such a powerful video clip and song.
Why don't I just sing a little bit for you?
I'd love you to.
How could you hurt the one you say you love the most? What made you think you had that power? Who told you you were God even for a day? He wasn't yours to take forever. No more cruelty, no more hate, no more lying, we won't wait. No more pretending, no more fears, no more broken mothers' tears. No more danger, no more lies, no more pain in each other's eyes. No more guns, no more war, no more. And I said, why? Is there so much violence, too much silence? Cry, cry, cry. For the souls we've lost, how many more have to die? We must come together, love's the answer. Why?
Oh, thank you. Sensational.
It's different with that Cage Erosion, Adam.
Oh, no, such a powerful way to end our interview. And as we close now, the big question that I always ask is, what's your message for the world?
To live authentically, to love unapologetically, tell the people that you love them whenever you get the chance. And yeah, just live your best life. And that life is beautiful and precious and special. And that you're all beautiful and special.
Oh, and that's beautiful. And you're an awesome human. You're such a lovely, genuine person, Greg. And
oh, thank you. And you seem exactly the same. You seem so lovely. I hope I get to meet you in person and have a coffee with you.
Oh, I would love to. I'd love to do that. Let's make that happen.
Love that. Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you for sharing your message, which I know is really going to set a lot of people free and give them the permission to let go and shed that shame that was never theirs to carry. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Stories of Hope with Kerry Atherton. If this conversation helped you, please consider sharing the podcast with a friend or leaving a rating and review on your podcast player. If you'd like to find out more about Kerry Atherton, head to storiesofhope.com.au, where you can purchase her books or find her next event. Check the show notes for links and information about our guest in this episode. And remember, you don't have to walk your path alone.